watching footy fantasy. It is sure say the thing will meet your football needs. Banter from rivalries, he sure you go receive. From EPL to Champions League, your eyes go see. It's footy fantasy. Yeah, watching footy fantasy. Footy fantasy. It is sure say the thing will meet your football need. Your football need. Banter from rivalries, he sure you go receive. Sure you go receive. From EPL to Champions League, your eyes go see. Your eyes go see. Footy fantasy. Footy fantasy.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of your Footy Fantasy podcast. With me today is Asher, Chelsea. See that scarf is about to squeeze the life out of him there. That's how dedicated he is. We have Raji, Newcastle fan, Dada, also a Chelsea fan. Who is
Are you using dialogue?
I was swarming against me. We are on YouTube, we're on Twitter and Facebook. On YouTube and Facebook, we are Footy SY. On Twitter, it is Footy AD Fantasy, FOOTIE ADFANTASY.
Zaza, I think you're breaking up a little. Let me just
mention that we will pick your comments as they're going. So, so let's start straight to the. Did you say something?
Yeah, you're breaking up a lot. One of the can you put back the stuff? I want to say that maybe you need to restart you may need to restart your reconnect to the meeting because
okay. You guys should just go ahead and continue. Yeah. Run with the. Wrong with.
All right, so you can join Footy Fantasy on Instagram, Twitter, and on the YouTube channel at Footy Fantasy. I think the screen was up earlier, so if you wanted to check it out, you can go back and check out the links. Today we're going to be talking about a few topics. We're going to be talking about Newcastle Chelsea review. We're also going to be talking about some of the comments about loyalty from Maresca, and we'll be discussing who and whom we'll be expecting to be getting relegated at the end of the season. And finally, the conversation is going to turn to the usual topic of who is your donkey and who are you giving kudos to. So as you expect, it's a 2 versus 1. As a result of resources, Chelsea is coming.
I'll be neutral.
Don't be neutral.
I won't be neutral.
Don't be neutral. I want you to go as hard as you need to. We can talk about the Newcastle versus Chelsea game. When Ayo sent me the link to this conversation, he said he wanted us to talk about the inconsistencies in how Newcastle and Chelsea have had this season. And I cannot think of a better game that shows the inconsistencies of these two teams than these two halves of football. But I'm curious to know from the Chelsea perspective, how do you think that game went? You guys were somewhat in the ascendancy in the second half, even though you kind of tapered down towards the end of the game. But you guys had control for most of the second half. What do you think was said? How do you feel about the game? Do you think that that's a good result from the Newcastle game?
Dada, you want to go first?
Sure. So, actually, I actually don't even think that game is about inconsistency. So when the game started, first of all, Chelsea typically we have a bad record at St. James's Park. I don't think we haven't won there in like 6 games. So I wasn't expecting a win. I also was expecting a reaction from Newcastle from the Sunderland game. So I think my best case scenario was a draw or maybe a narrow Newcastle win. So I think I had managed my expectations. When the game started, Newcastle came out gun blazing. Like they got to every second ball, they controlled the midfield, they pressed really high. The intensity was very, very high. And I remember telling a Chelsea fan that this game can end at 4-0 when you guys were 2-0 up. That was just a level of intensity. And Chelsea had no answer for whatever Newcastle was doing. Right? The first goal, really came out of nowhere. I don't know who the player on the left wing was, but
Gordon.
yeah, but I mean, Gusto had no answer for him. Right?
Yeah.
Attacks over the wing. Pedro Neto on the right couldn't do anything. I mean, Ganacho did the best he could to double up on him, but it was just a disaster. But I think the issue with Newcastle in that game, and this is also reminiscent of how Newcastle tends to play, is very high intensity, and you just cannot play that way for 90 minutes. It's not sustainable. And if you notice, towards the end of the first half, you could tell that Gimaresh and a lot of the Newcastle players were getting tired. Second half, actually, Chelsea did not make any tactical change. What happened was Newcastle just got tired, and Chelsea grew back into the game, and that's what gave us, the first goal was a foul on Palmer. Newcastle started to misplace passes. Caicedo grew into the game, and I mean, all the Chelsea forward players had a torrid game for different reasons. Palmer, from the first minute to the 90th minute, just misplaces passes. Neto, just his decisions in the final third was just torrid. Garnacho, on the other hand, I thought he had a decent game, but his finishing was horrible, right?
Yeah.
So all our forward players, and due to the combination of all three, João Pedro didn't get the service he deserved. So I think it was really just more like Newcastle could not maintain the intensity they started with. And I mean, Chelsea has quality, and we grew into the game. Lastly, I believe that was a game where Eddie Howe should have made changes in the 50th minute, in the 50th minute, or just to bring in like fresh legs. I thought maybe Worcester should have come in much earlier, just to give in, just to bring in like fresh legs. So you could tell like they were getting overrun in the midfield. So that being said, in the balance of play, I'll take the draw. But part of me feels like maybe Chelsea should have gotten the win if we had better finishing. And then also too, I mean, Newcastle did have some chances towards the end. Overall, maybe a draw was a fair result, but I think it wasn't so much inconsistency. It was just Newcastle were playing in a manner that was not sustainable. If Newcastle could play the way they did in 45 minutes every game in for 90 minutes, they will be top of the league, 10 points clear. But no one can play like that. You just can't sustain that level of intensity. So I think that was just that was the game. It is what it is. We'll move on from that. But Newcastle is a bit concerning. I mean, that's what I think.
Mm-hmm. Asher, your turn.
So honestly, the game here was at 7:30, and I was like, 7:30 morning games. I don't like waking up early to watch a 7:30 game because you lose and your whole day is ruined. So I was just like, no. when I wake up, then I'll watch the game. So I woke up and
I woke up at 6:30, by the way, and I think for you, Roger, it was what, 5:30?
It was supposed to be 4:30, but I was flying in that night. I was flying in from California, so I'm in Texas right now.
Oh, nice.
And I flew in overnight. I stayed awake on the plane, and when we landed in Texas, I still watched the game. So it's confusing to me. I mean, he's wearing the Chelsea flag really tight on his neck, but you can't wake up on 7. I'm just saying.
But so I watched this. I started watching, I think, from like the 40th, 44th minute ongoing. And I went back to look at the goals, and I was like, And I think the issue, we have a little bit inconsistencies, right? Like all the goals, like the first goal, for instance, Chalobah fell down. Um, the offside trap didn't work. It was like there are all these small details that if we want to be a top team, these shouldn't be issues we should be having. But the places of what we have, so it's very hard for us to maintain a good form. It's hard for them to go from 45 minutes of 90 minutes of Barcelona, 90 minutes of Arsenal, and then they come to Newcastle and 45 minutes of what the hell is this? And then after the second half, they go, okay, 45 minutes of Barcelona, let's turn it on again. So inconsistencies, yes, we are very inconsistent. You can do a 90-minute Barcelona performance, and then the following week we'll do a 90-minute Leeds performance, or a 45-minute first half Newcastle performance. So that's just how I see the game in terms of from a Chelsea standpoint. For Newcastle, I don't know what your problem is, because I mean you still have players. I know you have a lot of injury players, but you still have a good amount of players. You have strikers. You're not down with strikers. Your midfielders are still. I don't know who's injured in your midfield, but you still seem to have Bruno and whoever the other guy is. So you still seem to have players. I know you're missing Dan Brent for your center back, but I looked at your goals conceded is like 22. So the reason can't just be you're missing one defender, right?
Yeah. I mean, so are you done? Can I talk about Newcastle in general? So, like I said earlier, when Aya reached out to me, he was asking me to come and talk about Newcastle's inconsistency. But the reality is, Newcastle is very consistent in where they fail. One of the major reasons this season why we're really struggling is that now people see us as a top team, and they want us to break them down. Previously, we did the high intensity soccer, try to break teams down and beat them on the transition, but that doesn't work anymore when everybody is doing two blocks on the 2 blocks down. They have two what do you call it? 2 blocks, 4-4-2, trying to stop you from making any, or 4-5-1, or however they're trying to stop us, whichever team they are, and in doing so, Newcastle is now forced to send defenders forward, send everybody forward, trying to figure out how to break these teams. And when we do that, we start to lose control of the game. We start to misplace passes. We start to let people break us down. Things that we used to do to teams that were top, they start to do to us. So Newcastle's problem is learning how to control the game, especially when they're in the lead. When Newcastle is not in the lead, then everything is fine. But if Newcastle is in the lead and the team is coming at Newcastle, all the things that they've practiced starts to break down. It's a very fascinating problem to have, especially now that you see that we bought Elanga and all these players for that specific kind of transition game, and the games we play nowadays, people know how to stop us with the low blocks. So it's a very, very tricky problem to solve, and we don't have the players to do it right now. So we're going to continuously see inconsistencies from the Newcastle perspective. What do I think about the game yesterday? I think Dada's analysis of the game is generally what I agree with. We fell into the same problem. And like you said, also, we're not used to doing the whole intensity thing anymore. When João Pedro scored his second goal, and the kicker just kicked the ball, you saw that all the Newcastle players were out in front, including all the centre backs, and all they just had to do is kick it to João Pedro, one touch against the ball, and he was off on Thiaw, and then it was 1-on-1 with the keeper. It was one of the easiest goals this season. It's one of those problems. If Newcastle had done the 4-5-1 that they had been doing throughout this game, the crowd would have turned on them, because that's what we did at Sunderland, and we still lost. So they're not trying to force the players to be more intense and more active.
Mhm.
And even with that, we still lost the game. We still drew the game. So it's Newcastle has a tricky problem, and this is probably going to be Eddie Howe's most difficult season. But ultimately, I think that we're gonna somehow he's gonna somehow solve it. There's gonna be spending this January window, and we may see some.
Who do you guys get
Yeah,
from?
who do you guys get?
What do I care? They should get who they should get. I don't. I'm not in. I'm not in the transfer anymore. These people they are doing all the conversations. Who knew they were going to get Walter Madden?
We
I'm
can
not.
send you guys Tosin and who else? Tosin and
Tosin.
Buddy. If you guys want.
The funny thing about Tosin is Tosin wanted to get him, and Chelsea decided that they wanted to get him, and he decided that he wanted to go to Chelsea. So now that it's not working out for you, you want to sell him to us.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
No.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We'll be good.
Tosin might actually fit into Newcastle.
Don't worry about it. Thank you
Yeah,
very
I
much.
think he would. His
It
play.
doesn't need pace.
Okay. Thank you very much. We don't need to talk about Tosin. Tosin can stay in Chelsea for all I care. Does anybody have anything they wanted to add to this conversation about the Newcastle versus Chelsea game? I really felt like the game was fair. The score. I was expecting Chelsea to beat us.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think we're as consistent as we're as strong as we were last year. Not because of
Isak.
Isak. It's just, but the fact that Isak is not there plays a bit of a role, right?
Well, how many players are you missing? You're missing Isak. You're missing Dunburn, and who else?
We're missing Tonali. Was it Tino Livramento?
Oh, Livramento, yeah.
Our right back, he's out. We are playing a young star there, Miley, who was excellent throughout the game.
Yeah.
Lewis Hall has been inconsistent. This season. Dan Burn is out with a punctured lung. So we're playing.
Game, right?
Yes. Yeah. So he's out probably till February. Midfielders were particularly strong.
Yeah.
I think we still have a ton of midfielders there, but it doesn't sink as it did last season. I think if there's if you actually want to know what Newcastle's problem is this season, it's the wings. The wings are not working.
You still have Gordon Elanga.
Gordon has his games, and Gordon doesn't have his games. So in the first half he was unstoppable, but in the second half
he lost him. And that's why I felt like Eddie Howe should have made changes much earlier.
Yeah,
especially when Chelsea were growing into the game to kind of like disrupt Chelsea's momentum. But it didn't. Look, if we had a better striker of the ball than Garnacho, that game would have ended 4-2.
maybe.
Yeah.
I think if Esteban started on that wing, he probably would have scored. Because those chances that Garnacho missed, I was just like...
Someone wouldn't have gotten into those positions either. Because he doesn't have that kind of work rate.
I mean, if Wissa was playing too, I think that Newcastle would have scored more goals, especially if they had brought him in earlier. Because Wissa is closer to how Isak plays than Walter Mada. Walter Mada is a withdrawn striker.
Yeah.
And one of the problems I was having throughout the game was Walter Mada is in the midfield when we have two wingers. It's nobody to cross to. What the hell are you doing all the way there? There's no target there. Wissa is not going to have that same problem, So it's just the personnel we have right now. We have to format our game to match the new expectation. But necessarily, I think we can move on to the next topic.
Yeah.
And I think this has to do with Maresca's conversation about loyalty. I'm going to let you and Asha take control of this conversation, and I'll jump in later.
I don't know how much you've heard about this. I think this started before the Everton game. They asked Maresca, it was a press conference. They asked Maresca about a player. Was it Reece James or?
They asked him about experience, and that's the game that Tosin. What did he do? I think that was.
No, they asked him about they asked him about Gusto. What happened was Gusto scored. They asked him about, hey, Gusto hasn't scored in a while, but he had a good game. I think it had to do with the Everton game.
Well, no, if there's an Everton game, then before that was a Tosin incident, and then they asked him and they said about something about experience, and that was when he threw Tosin under the bus, and he said,
Yeah.
he said, you keep talking about experience, but Tosin's 27, he's the oldest in this team, but did he play well? No. And I think from then it started.
Yes, but the main thing was they asked him about Gusto, totally unrelated, and then he goes, "Oh, this 48 hours has been the worst 48 hours I had as a manager in Chelsea," and then that took everyone off guard. It was after the Cardiff game. Yes, after Cardiff game. Yes.
Yeah. So after the Champions League, and then I think we played.
Exactly. After the Cardiff game. So that threw everyone off guard, and everyone was like, "Wait, what are you talking about? Like 48 hours? Like who's not supporting you?" And the media now, like they like to probe, and totally unrelated. So they asked him, like, "Well, is it the fans?" I'm like, "No, I'm happy with the fans." And then they're like, "Well, is it the media?" Okay, I'm happy. And he insinuated that he was happy with the media. Now, through a process of elimination, if you're happy with the fans, you're happy with the media, then it's got to be the owners, right? But a lot of these managers are very savvy. They say things without saying things. So he alluded to him being unhappy, the worst 48 hours in his Chelsea career. Now, a week after that, or I think on Monday, David Ornstein from The Athletic broke out news that Pep Guardiola might be retiring at the end of the season, and Maresca is going to be is one of their primary targets to replace Guardiola, right? So in the span of 1 week,
you missed one thing. So somewhere in between there, it got leaked that he changed his agent to Mendes.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to come to that. Yeah. So in the span of you're right, in the span of 1 week, he came out to say he's unhappy with the owners, changed his agent to a super agent, George Mendes. News broke out anonymously that Man City, Pep Guardiola is going to retire, and Maresca is one of their top candidates, right? So this is sort of like what's going on in the background with Chelsea and sort of like this manager rumor. Did I miss anything else, Asha? I think that's sort of what.
No, I think that's about it. And then since then, basically people were like, what's going on? If you come out, there's one more thing you missed. There was a picture after that Champions League game against Atlanta. And it showed the sporting managers. I think it showed the sporting managers down by the dressing rooms.
Yeah,
I think it was after that game, but there was a picture of them downstairs, and there was quotes of them going down to the dressing room. You know that whole thing they did with Potter, where after each game they were in the dressing room.
Yeah, I mean, look, in general, for me, like a couple things are at play here. One is Pep Guardiola going to leave City at the end of the season? Who knows, right? Like I would not be surprised. I mean, there's been rumors going on for a while that Pep is going to leave City. And also, Pep is one of those managers where I think he leaves his decision to the very last minute.
Yeah,
he's been there for 10 years. They built the entire process. I mean, they changed their entire philosophy and club program to suit Pep, right? So, Man City football team and Pep Guardiola are a mirror image of each other. So, am I totally surprised that they're bringing in someone like Maresca, who is familiar with the club? Maresca knows City. They're a big fan of his work. I'm not surprised. What's a bit surprising to me, and you guys can check me here, is I don't know an example of a top 4 manager or maybe a top 6 manager leaving one club for the other, right? When Conte left Chelsea for Spurs, I think he went to Italy first before he went to Spurs. When also Mourinho went to
Villas-Boas, I think, went from Chelsea to. Well, he got fired, but
he got fired. But there was a period in time where it didn't work. But I don't know any example of a top manager getting poached from a top 5 club, right? In recent, I just cannot think of an example. So from that perspective, this would be unprecedented. That's one. But I would not be completely surprised. And 2, the timing just seems very odd to me. And look, I don't know how Asha feels about Maresca within the Chelsea sphere and even outside of Chelsea. He's I always call him a polarizing figure, but it's like people's opinion of Maresca changes on a weekly basis. Like one week is the greatest thing since sliced bread. The next thing is the worst manager that's ever existed. And like personally, from my perspective, I'm a big fan of Maresca even from day one, and I continue to be. But he's such a polarizing figure with Chelsea fans. And then you see folks who are even not Chelsea fans like, oh, he's not a good manager. I'm surprised Chelsea went for him. And at the same time, too, when you talk to Chelsea fans, they're like, oh man, why would City take our manager? Well, but you claim that you don't want him. So now you feel bad that he's going to City. So I'll be interested to get your take on one, Maresca. What do you think about City pushing for him? And then what do you think is going to happen to Maresca at the end of the season?
So the funniest thing to me is that Maresca is at the top of the list, right? So in the Premier League, there are two graduates, Arteta and Maresca. One is at the top of the league, one is fighting to be top four, but they're going for the guy who's fighting for top four. I thought that was funny. In terms of how much Arsenal fans brag about Arteta, somehow he wasn't top of the list. So that's one of my first things I thought was funny. In terms of, I think Maresca would go if they give him the option because he would get a star striker. If Maresca says, I want an experienced midfielder, City's going to get it for him. They are not going to go and get a 16-year-old from Brazil or 15-year-old from somewhere in Europe and say, oh, we think he's going to be a star. They're not going to get that for him. He's going to have that support behind him.
Yeah.
Right now, he's fighting for experienced midfielders and they keep giving him Garnacho. They gave him, I think the last month, there was talks that we signed some 15-year-old kid.
But sorry, if I may though. So here's a couple of things that folks need to be clear on is Maresca knows that this is what he signed up for. So like when you join the football club, they laid out the blueprints and said, here's what we're trying to do at this club. Here's our process. Here's our vision. Are you fine with it? And he said yes. Like Raji, you know what I'm saying? Like when you go work for Microsoft, they'll give you an employment agreement. They'll tell you, hey, here's the job, here's the responsibility, and then you say yes. Now, if Microsoft turns around and say, guy, you know what, we wanted you to work, let me be PlayStation. They're like, hey, you know what, now I want you to start working on Microsoft Teams. You're like, oh, guys, here's not what I signed up for. So like Maresca knew what he signed up for, and he agreed to it. So I'm not a big fan of this thing of, well, you went to go sign Garnacho. He was told, like the club especially told him, here's our program, here's our vision, here's what we're trying to do. Are you fine with it? And are you willing to come execute this vision? And he said yes.
I agree, right? But there's a caveat, okay? When you keep signing under 20-year-old players and then you expect top four Aston Villa, this doesn't look like an easy team. Crystal Palace was basically still pushing top four. Liverpool is coming back. You're competing against almost 4 actual well-built teams that have experience. But you keep signing under 20-year-olds and you're expecting top four. It's almost like, yes, you said you want to sign kids. If you're okay with kids, then you should be okay with the top 6.
But Garnacho is not a kid, though. I'm sorry. Like
he's not a kid, but we went and got a guy from 15th place United. Like I was thinking about this yesterday, right? Let me give you.
Garnacho is a very well talented player. I think so. This is, it's always for somebody who is not a Chelsea fan. For me, it's always very fascinating to hear how Chelsea fans talk about Chelsea, as well as the coaches, because Chelsea spend a lot.
On kids.
They spend a lot, not necessarily kids too.
Not necessarily kids.
You got Joao Pedro. Joao Pedro is an established striker.
Starter.
Yes.
So,
what position was the team?
You also got the other striker from
Ipswich.
What's it?
Ipswich.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was top striker for Ipswich. Those are 2 experienced strikers. You have it's not a 16-year-old, it's not a 15-year-old. These are 2 top strikers from 2 previous seasons that were supposed to grow with Chelsea.
Pedro Neto has been in the league for actually look at it.
Pedro Neto.
Sanchez is
Pedro Neto, Pedro.
Yes. So so there's always this narrative from Chelsea fans. Oh, we don't sign experienced players, but I'll start. Casado is a senior man. Enzo, World Cup winner, is a senior man. Chalobah, Fofana is a senior. Like Fofana used to captain Leicester. Rhys James is not a young buck. Cucurella is not a young buck.
Okay,
your goalkeeper is not a young buck.
Yeah. This is what I'm saying. Okay,
so who are the kids in the
let's
team?
think back to the Abramovich days. Okay,
I'm sorry?
Let's think back to the Abramovich days.
Don't forget you still have Mudryk.
let's think back to
Asha, hold on. Let me say something quickly, Asha. There's a difference between signing, like you're saying, there's some things you're saying that makes me feel like you are being too egotistical and too conceited. Like, what do you mean by you want to sign a player from 15th place Manchester United? So if you went and signed Pedro from Neto from Wolves, you didn't mention that.
Well,
very good player. Hold on. Jota that Liverpool. Listen, hold on. Liverpool signed Jota. It was from Wolves, who had bottom period. One of the best players they signed. So this idea that the club they signed from, not the player, is the issue. That makes it sound like you're just looking for something to criticize. You're not really looking at what you're saying. Because you have to look at the player that signed, not where the player signed from. Why is the player signed?
Okay, let me put in perspective of what I mean. Okay, during the Abramovich era, when Chelsea went to sign a player, we signed Deco.
Abramovich era is over.
I know. I'm coming from.
The Roman era. That era is over. There's a reason why it's done. It's done. It's dusted.
I know.
United fans talking about Fergie era. That's done. That's in the past.
I understand it's done, right? But my point is, right, out of all the players you all have mentioned, João Pedro that was his first goal in 6 games. Neto's record is off and on.
Neto has been one of the best winger in the EPL this season.
He's been one of the best, but we're talking about consistency.
Especially in away games. He's been consistently.
How can you be one of the best and not be consistent? That means if he's not consistent, that means he's not consistent.
That's a problem.
He's one of the best. You admit he's one of the best, and you say, but he's not consistent.
That's a problem.
No, mention 2 wingers who are better than Neto this season in the EPL.
Who?
Foden.
2 wingers who are better than Neto this season.
Foden and Doku are saying better.
I think there's an argument.
No,
there's an argument. Even both of them, I would say that you can still put Neto in that box. I don't think it's a clear.
Better than Neto this season.
I don't think that there's a clear argument that they are actually better. I don't think.
The guy I thought he was going to mention, Raji, was Semenyo. If you had mentioned Semenyo and Mbeumo, I would have made. But you going to Foden?
Semenyo for sure.
Semenyo is good.
Semenyo for sure.
Even Saka has not been better than Neto this season.
No, I don't think so.
Put it this way, right? The money we spent on Garnacho, I would have preferred if we bought Semenyo.
Garnacho was 40 million pounds. Semenyo was a 100 million pound player.
You're not paying. You know how much we paid for Sancho? For Garnacho, maybe 30 million pounds. You're not buying.
It was more than that.
No, maybe 30. The most Semenyo is going to go for maybe 60 or 70.
Yeah.
And you know how much wages is going to command?
I think that you are either trying to create chaos in this conversation.
No, I'm just
you are not a real Chelsea fan, and you are disguising yourself with that flag around your neck.
I'm just talking about Chelsea fan. Garnacho, I did not want Garnacho. We knew about Garnacho's problems before he came to you.
But the thing about it also is when they said Garnacho, there was a loud sigh of relief from Chelsea fans saying that they got someone who was quality. So we cannot dismiss it.
Please, at this point, we were beggars because they kept going for kids. That's my point. You keep.
But Garnacho is not a kid.
Garnacho is not a kid.
Before Garnacho, who did we buy? Estevao.
Estevao is one of the young talents in the world.
Talents, but he's new. My point, right?
But didn't you?
In the Brazilian league.
Okay, guys, hold on, everyone, hold on. Asha, let me come in here because we're going to keep asking questions and going in the loop. Let me come in here and say this, right? When we were planning this podcast, I brought up that Yoyo thing, the inconsistency of Newcastle and Chelsea.
Chelsea, yeah.
And one of the reasons why I brought it up was I actually was looking at the two teams. And I think my comment will summarize the podcast so far. Is from my view, Raji actually said Newcastle's problem, which was that Newcastle are now a bigger club and everybody else is treating them like a big club. But that's one side of the problem. The other side of the problem is what Chelsea is also facing, even though we don't want to admit it, because you keep saying Abramovich, and it brings that thing that also Newcastle faces, which is everybody's expecting Newcastle to go out and spend money, but FFP is there. So it's the same problem Chelsea has. That's why these guys are doing this. You're looking at them like they should be spending like Abramovich. They're going, no. If we put in $1 billion of spending money and buy only 10 players, we're going to keep spending, 300 million, 400 million every year. We don't have that. We are trying to buy players at bulk so that if 10, 15 of them are good, we sell the rest and we build a team. This 1 billion you're looking at that they invested, if you look at it, they invested it in 30, 40, not 30, 20 players, a lot of players, because they're trying to spread that money. What I'm trying to tell you is that because of financial fair play and maybe because of hedge fund guys, they are not going to bring Abramovich money. So Dada is right in saying, forget the Abramovich era. It's not happening in the Premier League anymore. You can watch it. The richest owners in the Premier League are not even the closest to the highest spenders. It's the most financially stable clubs, Liverpool and Arsenal, that are blowing everybody out of water with spending because of the way SFC has kind of brought this thing to where it is. That is the issue here. It's not really about these guys just throwing money at kids. It's their strategy. That's how they want to operate. And from my own side, as a non-Chelsea fan looking at you guys, I would say you're and you're having kids. They can be better, but you know.
Yeah, you're button again.
Yeah, we lost.
Go ahead.
I do think there is something to the FFP conversation, but I think the problem with the FFP conversation is all the clubs are subject to it too. And some teams will benefit more from it, obviously, the established clubs like Manchester City. Even Chelsea, they have multiple women teams they can sell to launder money back into the club. But I do think that even without the FFP conversation, the players they have on the field at any particular time should still be good enough to win games. And I think that the fact that they don't win those games is more of what I think is the problem. Is it the coach? I mean, there's some people who are saying that Eddie Howe should be gone. There's some people who are saying that we're just not consistent enough. And after the Sunderland game, there was a big uproar at Newcastle about our ability to change the game, which is what Dada was saying. Like, sometimes Eddie Howe is reactive to what's going on as opposed to being the one that wants to push things to happen on the field. And in his reaction, sometimes we just watch the game go away. But I'm not entirely sure that FFP would have saved that problem at that particular time. This is what is happening on the field. And what we see is what we see. I'm not really sure. I mean, we can get another player. We can get another Elanga, spend 55 million pounds on him, and then he can't even pass the ball to the person in front of him anymore after he joins Newcastle.
If I may make one quick point about law, and here's the thing. Across the EPL, clubs have spent massive amounts of money on players. I can tell you this categorically. The top 5 transfers in terms of fees, they've underperformed their transfer fees.
Yeah.
Vets, Isaac, Gokeres, Sheshko, right? Those are some of the top 4. They've underperformed. And what does that tell you? It tells you something that we need to revisit this model of spending a bunch of money on players is the higher the transfer fee doesn't automatically translate to on-field performance.
That's true.
It doesn't. So, like for me,
let me tell you what translates to on-field performance. Hold on. Just quickly continue. Wages, but go on. Wages transform to on-field performance. But go on.
Like if Ganacho, let's say, is soft, that's an easier pill to swallow because you didn't pay 80 million pounds for him.
Okay.
I would be furious right now if I'm a Liverpool fan and at the end of the season I get 10 goals from Isaac. Now,
I mean, he's injured.
He may perform in 2026, 27. It may. But guess what? You don't know that. And every year that goes by that you're not getting your money's worth, that is some value on the transfer cost that you spent.
Yeah.
And I just want to that's one thing I think fans just need to like realize is if you have two players who suck, but you play significantly less for one, it just sucks less because you're not throwing money out the door. Isaac was what, 140 million?
130. 125.
125. You know that number because you got to read it now somewhere. And I know you're laughing every weekend when you see that. You know what I'm saying? It's because every week that guy is not getting, every season that is not getting you 20, 25 goals a week, man, it's hurting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually in church this morning and my pastor was talking about
And not only does it hurt.
Isaac. It was talking about the parable of Isaac, and he was saying, like, he was trying to remind us of the man who decides to leave because he wants to further his own personal gain. And when he does that, he turns around and spits at the fans who helped him along the way. And then he gets there, and then he scores his second goal in 3 months, and then he broke his leg. And, you know, I was very taken by that story. I don't know why, actually, but I do think that there's a lot to learn from the parable of Isaac. That's all I have to say about it.
Well, let me round this up so we can move on. I would say that with transfer fees, there's always an opportunity cost. Some clubs, you got to go spend that money and you get it right. Sometimes you don't. But the fee is always about what you want and what the person you're buying from wants. But every time you spend 100 million, it's a very important thing that you know that it actually reduces your chances of spending 100 million next year. If you buy 100 million players, it reduces chances of signing 2-3 other players. This is the truth.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that clubs shouldn't sign. No, you sign what you need. But sometimes we fans should also remember because sometimes you're going, hey, we don't have enough what's it called, players. We don't have enough squad. You forget, oh, that's because you signed Isaac or you signed, this guy. So it happens even like in my club, Manchester United. We don't have midfielders, but we spent 200 million on strikers. Some people have said we just bought kids. It would have been better because we're not winning either. So these are the things. But I think, Asher's arguments actually have value in the other side of the stuff because when you said, Raji, that we can spend another 50 million pound player, yeah, but you're actually better off if you have 211. Look at Arsenal. Look at Man City. They're dominating this league. That's what Liverpool were trying to do because Odegaard most of this season. You know, as a matter of fact, fans started complaining that he came back and made the team. Martinelli has not played most of the season. Gabriel Jesus has been out. What's the name of that? White. I haven't seen White this season. Saliba got injured. Well, you see the way they're just plugging and playing players because squad matter in winning championships.
Yeah.
So let's not pretend that money doesn't help. If you can have more players, if not for FSC, you can just go out and have more players. It does. The reason why the league is the way it is now is because the other smaller teams are catching because the big teams cannot go out and bully them like before. That's why the league is condensed. And the smaller teams are looking so terrible. The rules are bad. But that's it. So you said, you wanted to make sure he said that this parable of Isaac is crazy for sure. Like that pastor must be a Newcastle fan. But why would you remember that campaign on a Sunday? Well,
it wasn't a Newcastle fan. He's a Manchester United fan.
Oh, that makes sense. He hates Liverpool. Makes sense. He hates Liverpool. So, Raji, let's move on to who is going to go down. Does anyone actually deserve it? Just quickly, quick answer. Three teams you think
I
will
can
go down, and which
I
of
actually,
them,
I
which of
actually,
these mentioned deserves to go down?
I actually think that the three teams that are going to go down are the three teams that are in the bad position right now: West Ham, Burnley, and Wolves. I think Wolves they've been flirting with it for a while, and they've been saved by the fact that there's always some team who's coming in from the Championship that always takes their place. But they've always been flirting with that. The fact that Sunderland came this season and they struggled, they didn't struggle. They went straight into the top 10 has affected that particular point. So points they would have gotten from beating Sunderland, they don't have those points anymore. West Ham has become a mess, and they've been a mess for a while. They finally paying the consequences of that. And Burnley is just a team that came up recently, and they changed their whole squad before the beginning of the season. So they're trying to do multiple things, trying to get access to understand each other, and to also deal with the rigors of the Premiership. So I think that they're not going to have enough time to solve those problems. I think those are the three teams that are going down.
Man, I agree 100%. And like this whole thing of deserve, the EPL is over. What?
38 games.
Yeah. Like whoever goes down deserves to go down, right? So I think I totally agree. Wolves for sure they're going down. West Ham, I do believe they will go down as well, and Burnley. And I think what's refreshing for me to see this season is I think in the past 2 seasons in a row, we've had this yo-yo effect of the three teams who get promoted get relegated. So I think we'll overdue a correction for that on that. So I think it's good to see. So for sure, I think Wolves are going down. I think it's going to be West Ham. Leeds have really picked up form in the past few games where they can start to break away. Yeah, I agree with Raji. I think those are the three teams that are going to go down. But it's been a while we've seen a nice relegation scrap, though. Remember back like a few seasons ago, we again on the last day. So it'd be nice to just, see a relegation scrap with like a couple teams and it's down to the wire. There's just something. What's that German word when you take pleasure in people's misery?
Schadenfreude.
Exactly, like a little bit of that.
I mean, the only thing that can change it is if. Sorry, Asha. Let me just say this last thing, and I'll let you have the floor. I think the thing that could change my calculation is if they spend in January. Burnley, West Ham, or Wolves. And
no, Wolves have 2 points, so Wolves are going down for sure.
Yeah, Wolves are.
Yeah, so yeah, Wolves are going down, but I think there's a chance that West Ham could buy 1 or 2 players, but it's unlikely to. But 5 points is not insurmountable, is what I think.
Honestly, looking at the table, I think West Ham might escape.
Okay.
But because I mean they were playing with Europa Conference League. Just when did Declan leave?
Was it 3 seasons ago?
3 seasons ago?
Or 2 or 3 seasons, I think.
Yeah, I mean, even when he left, they didn't drop that low. So it's weird that they're in that position at this point. But I think West Ham can escape. But Wolves, for sure, Wolves and Burnley, I don't think they'll make it out. Leeds, I think, might get pulled into that scrap because I watched their games and Wolves play on passion. But there are going to be some days when that passion starts to run out. I mean, like, we're only in December and we still have all these Christmas games coming along and so I think that passion play of every game is almost like 90 minutes of straight running. They're going to start feeling it come March, April, February. So that's going to start feeling it. So all those teams that play on passion and high intensity, run up and down, we're going to start seeing that when we get into the new year, if they can keep it up.
So no one thinks Nottingham Forest could go down with their problems and then having to play in Europe.
They have a player. They have a manager that's going to fight really hard for them. And his name is Sean Dodge.
Who's the manager? I can't remember who the manager is.
Sean Dyche.
I mean, I actually think that there's a higher possibility that Nottingham Forest goes down than Leeds, but um, Leeds have gotten some good scalps this season for sure,
For
and
sure.
Leeds is actually a lot more stable than Nottingham Forest. But I also think that West Ham is fundamentally imbalanced. They're fundamentally unbalanced at this particular point, and unfortunately, they can't play Newcastle every week. Um, if they played Newcastle every week, then I think that there's a possibility that they stay up because Newcastle is inconsistent like that. They'll beat Manchester City and lose to West Ham. Great.
But Raji, you know something I realized after yesterday's game? You guys have played all the top six at home. So for the next half of you're going away, all
Yeah,
six.
and we don't win away.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this we are fucked, is what I would say. Sorry,
Newcastle
my
are going to
pastor
finish
said I shouldn't
around
be
where they
saying
are. 10-11. That's where Newcastle is because they just been like this.
no.
And they're not
No,
about to change. Is that 10-11
I think
area?
I think that you guys are mischaracterizing Newcastle's season entirely. I think that I've been saying a lot of people who have Newcastle were 11th at this point last season, and we still ended up coming 5th. This is not a problem, and this season is a lot tighter than last season. Seriously, if we win 2 games, we could be in top 4. The distance between 4th and 11th is just like 6 points.
7 points now.
7 points, sure. Win 2 or 3 games and you are in the top 4. I don't think that the problem is as bad as you think for Newcastle. And I think that Newcastle is probably going to strengthen in the January window. I think they're going to strengthen in the defensive positions, and I think they're probably going to strengthen in the winger positions. So they're going to buy somebody who can break down a team. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Okay. Raji, I'll start with you again because this question actually kind of lines up with you. We're talking about Bruno example because what happened with Bruno was supposed to go get lucrative contract in Saudi last year, and he said, "Oh, I love the club. I'm the captain. I'm going to stay." And now that the club wants to sell him because they've kind of realized that they have to rebuild, and they're going to sell off assets, and that he has a lower transfer clause, and like Bayern wants to buy him. And so the question now is, we all know that he's not going to make as much money at Bayern as he was going to make at Saudi. Why are we criticizing players like that for saying, I want to go to Liverpool for all that money, force it out, when clubs can turn around and make a player not go somewhere for money, then turn around the next year and say, we don't need you anymore? Why do we do this as fans?
I'm going to give you another example to kind of add to your point. Dubravka was supposed to leave Newcastle in January of last year. He got a lucrative deal with Saudi Arabia that would have paid for a lifetime of expenses for him and his family. At that particular point, Pope was out with an injury, and Newcastle needed a goalkeeper. Eddie Howe begged him to stay, and he stayed beyond his contract. 2 games after the contract window closed, Pope was replaced in the box with Pope, and he never got another chance to play for Newcastle again. At the end of the season, he never got the opportunity to play in Saudi Arabia, and he's now playing in Burnley, and he's not getting paid as much. So there is an argument to be had about the benefit of the club. But I also want to say that you are still going to be at the discretion of the club. The club is going to do whatever they need to do to survive within that framework. And the player can force a move as much as they want. But if the club decides they are not going to sell, it's not the interest of the club, they won't sell. Manchester United is a particularly stupid club, to be fair. And I feel like they should have sold him earlier. But, I'm not here to make Manchester United feel good about themselves. So, I'm happy that they don't have the money, but it's interesting to see that the point is good, it's cool, but I'm not entirely sure where else we can go with the argument.
I'll give you two examples: Chalobah and Nicholas Jackson.
Wait, sometimes this guy makes me laugh, Asha. This guy has already told us last season that Newcastle have already overtaken Manchester United. They're now a bigger club. They've been beating us consistently for years. Why are you still dissing us? It's like me dissing Burnley, just throwing snipe shots. I don't do that. Why are you doing it? You're still worried about us? The 15th place club? What's going on here?
I'm going to say that I've never said that Manchester United is a smaller club than Newcastle, and I have every right to hate Manchester United as much as possible. And I'll continue to do it because of all the trauma I experienced under your old manager, Sir Alex Ferguson. Thank you very much. And thank you for your attention to this matter.
At least you're an honest man.
Don't keep an hero so we can wrap up.
So back to what I was saying. So take example, Chalobah and Nicholas Jackson. That was basically all over the news, right? We bought that and João Pedro and basically pushed Nicholas Jackson to number 3, offering him to clubs. Hey, do you guys want to sign this guy? Do you want to sign this guy? Nicholas Jackson got unsettled. He wasn't happy. Bayern came from him. At the last minute, the lab gets injured, and then all of a sudden we are like, no. Actually, come back. And that's like a whole back and forth, right? But Chalobah, we tried to sell this guy like 5 times. I don't even know how many times we tried to sell him. And he said he wouldn't go. And now, what we keep, Levi Cole gets injured, Fofana gets injured. Who plays? Chalobah plays. So the clubs do get away with a lot of criticism. I think we don't give players that opportunity of basically saying, you know what, take your family, pick them up, and just go to Germany because we don't want you anymore. And if the player says, you know what, I think I'm done playing, the clubs are going to say, well, sorry, you have a contract with us, you can't leave. But most of the times, the clubs get to publish their piece of this player is not a good player and they're disturbing the club, and we want to sell it.
And the other side of it is when the player comes out, when the club says their stuff or leaks their stuff to the press, if the player comes out and fights the club, the whole football world turns against him. Like if the player comes out and says, "This is not what really happened," the whole football world. So he's talking inside information. He's only defending himself. He's doing what any number of women should do, but he's trying to be like, shut up and play. Shut up, dribble kind of thing. That's what I look at it as. Dada, what do you think?
My thing is, at the end of the day, look, everyone has to do what's in their best interest, right? So I feel like players should do what's in their best interest for their career and also for their own financial gain. And clubs should do the same as well. In terms of who has the leverage, and kind of going back to the old corporate world structure, or constructs rather, larger corporations tend to have the most leverage. So to Asha's point, they tend to frame the narrative. And I think that is a bit unfair. But due to that unfairness, that is why they compensate you the way they compensate you. So players are getting paid, 100 grand a week, 80 grand a week. The reason why they get paid that amount of money is they're also paying you that amount of money because down the line, they are gonna burden your life. Like down the line, there's a certain level of volatility and disruption that we expect you to take. So if you're paying someone 50 grand a year or 30 grand a year, and you expect them to move from Germany to England overnight, that is unfair. But if I'm paying you 150 grand a week, part of that expectation is baked in that, hey, there'll be a time where I need you to do X, Y, Z. So yes, I do have sympathy for the players. I understand where they're coming from. I understand how disruptive it can be. But part of their enormous wages bakes in or assume that things like this will happen. Going back to Isaac, what made Isaac had to force a move? Now, football and us working for corporations is a bit different because of brand loyalty, right? If I leave my job tomorrow, my vendors or the consumers of my product, they don't know who I am. They don't know who Dada is. They just know like they turn on their lights every day and they get energy, but they don't care that there's some bozo in Houston working on financial models. That relationship does not exist. While in the footballing world, your end customers are also invested in you as a person. So that makes the brand a big difference to server. So when Isaac is leaving his employer, he's not just leaving his employer, he's also leaving some 10-year-old kid in Newcastle that has a massive poster of Isaac, or some 45-year-old divorcee that has a tattoo of Isaac on his arm. You see what I'm saying? So that is why they're leaving. It's different. And that's why it's not a one-to-one relationship. That's why they have to, the onus is on them to manage that relationship. They have to manage the communication to the fans, because their end customers are not just consumers. They're people who are tied to their image and their loyalty. Raji can act all he wants, but I'm pretty sure deep down it hurt him when Isaac left. So yeah, it did. Like let's not kid around here. Like you're not just, yeah, part of you are like, man, you know what, dude, I really respect you. Why could you do this to me? Right? So it's not just him living in Liverpool. There's an element of that, and that's why it's not as easy as, oh, should clubs be able to do whatever they want? Should players be able to do whatever they want? It's not that black and white. And there's just, it is what it is. It's one of those things where there's not really a right answer, there's not a wrong answer. So when players choose to leave, I get it, but at the same time, I'm like, man, you suck. So to Raji's point, Raji is well within his right to not wish Isaac well. And Isaac is also well within his right to leave Newcastle. And Newcastle as a club, they're also well within their right to act the way they acted. So it's a complicated situation. It's kind of like a divorce. Like who's right or who's wrong? It all depends on what the perspective is. So
Wow.
I know that was a cop out,
was
but it's not that
very, very. I can't argue with that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I agree. It
Doesn't sound like a cop out. It doesn't sound like that's a very well explained. Like it's very hard to argue with that. That actually explains it very, very well. Well, round up. We've been here for an hour.
Hold on. Let me make a quick comment.
This was very. I want to say this was very, very good. The three of us actually made to give us. Okay, go ahead, Asher.
So when Chelsea was selling players, everyone threw Chelsea under the bus. Everyone on this forum threw Chelsea under the bus and said, "We keep signing players and we are just wasting their careers." I remember that part. So who's supposed to get the criticism for that? Is that the club or the players?
What's your point on this one? I'm trying to understand what you're getting at.
I'm just asking who's to blame for this, because
he's saying that when Chelsea was selling and dumping players, they were being criticized.
I mean, you can't really dump players in reality.
I don't know.
You have to pay the cost of their contract, and they're getting paid a lot of money at Chelsea. So if they are becoming a mechanic and they're coming to train every day and they're making 350,000, I'm not entirely sure a lot of them. I mean, we all know that the Chelsea players, they only care about money. So we'll just have to deal with what we have to deal with.
Raji, this is one reason why people wait for Newcastle to fail, because you are one of the most you give it, man. But that's why I like you, man. That's why I like you. So Ola says support by Dada on the Sondike voice thought there was something wrong with the audio at first. And this is true. When you started saying that, I was wondering, wait, what's going on? Then I realized what he was saying. Then Ola goes ahead to say that loyalty is mostly a myth nowadays. Clubs and players are only loyal to each other when convenient. He now says that for Liverpool, we also have multiple examples of players being pushed out when they wanted to stay. So I think it happens everywhere. I don't know what the solution is, but I think that answer actually kind of hints at something very important. That these players have played very well, and it's kind of compensation for the strife or whatever goes through in their lives.
I think
So
the only thing
let's run through and donkey.
the only thing I'll say he left
Go ahead.
before I could. I was just gonna ask him why he was sending strays my way, but we'll talk on in chat later. Don't worry about it.
No, it's all like three of you have been entering each other. You guys are entering each other. So let's do kudos and donkeys of the week. Asha, you got any kudos this week?
Kudos. I don't know who deserves a kudos this week because I don't think I saw any game that was really impressive. Maybe I'll give it to Leeds. Actually, I'll give it to Leeds. They won 4-1 against Crystal Palace. I was expecting Crystal Palace to win and be on the same point or higher than us in the league table, but somehow they still lost to Leeds. So I'll give my kudos to Leeds for that one. For donkeys, I have two Spurs and the referees this weekend because some of the decisions I didn't understand, like some of the tackles in that Spurs games were red cards, and I don't know what's a red card nowadays. Caicedo got the red card for a stump. Xavi got that for a red card, but then in that same game, Van Dijk doesn't get a red card. I don't know what's a red card nowadays. So I don't know what goes to Vieira, what doesn't go to Vieira. I don't know.
For my kudos of the week, I'm going to give it to Unai Emery. Aston Villa is the top team, one of the top teams this season. They've been on an extremely major run, and I think that their consistency is as a result of the work that Unai Emery has given in. I also think that they're able to change the way they play depending on the team, so there's some flexibility to it. So Unai Emery deserves at least my kudos this week, especially after the win they had against Manchester United, who can be very tricky to beat. Every once in a while, you play a team that sucks so much that it's very difficult to understand how to beat them. My donkey of the week is, of course, Isak. The parable of
we
Isak
watch the same football match, but continue.
The parable of Isak is very strong this week. He left Newcastle for the pursuit of his individual success, and he has joined a team where he was supposed to be teaching the young Ekitike to play, but we are seeing Ekitike doing an extremely better job than him. So he's now being paid over 250,000 a week to sit down on the bench, and he can't even anticipate the tackle coming in from the side. So he's just falling down and getting injured left and right. His thigh is a problem. Hey, Isak, he has taken Liverpool from champions.
Who did you try and convince?
Champions.
Who did this man try and convince that Isak did not make him mad? It was just like
I've never seen a player I found this mad about a player before because we haven't.
He doesn't care. It's not affecting.
I care. See, I care about Isak. I want to see him fail. Not that's my own thing. I've never said I don't care about Isak. It doesn't hurt me that he left Newcastle. He was always going to leave Newcastle. What hurts me was he spat at our faces while he was doing that. And he never apologized. He's too proud to apologize, right? Things he did, so many things he did in his quest to leave. And people have to do things to leave. No questions about that. But I think this one was too much. So for me, only one season. At the end of this season, I'm not going to talk about Isak. But this season, every time I'm watching Liverpool, I'm watching for Isak. If he doesn't score more than 10 goals this season, it's a failure. And I'm going to enjoy the shit out of it. Thank you very much.
How many goals does he have right now?
2.
Damn.
We're counting. Don't worry.
1 or 2. Let me take this comment quickly. So you said, I think this loyalty thing is just the day we're in now. Not the same thing we see in the corporate world. Then Ola says bitter jilted lover rant, new low, making fun of Issa who just got injured by bad tackle while his team is languishing bottom half. And then so you add that this level of bitterness is not good, bro. And then, my kudos this week actually also goes to Unai Emery. This was the banana skin game, and it was supposed to be a banana skin game. United actually played better than Aston Villa for more games. For Aston Villa, the championship, Aston Villa beat the home team. United actually pushed them so that the only time they actually had a chance to that goal, that brilliant goal in the first half. That first half was they were not playing. The second half, that goal also broke for them. They had their moments, but they only did the right and did the job. Now he's got to get praised because, like I said, this is the banana skin game. Aston Villa tends to always lose or draw against United. They don't beat United, so to get that game was big, and so kudos to Unai. Just jump the hurdle, and there's still a lot more big ones necessary to jump. My donkey of the week is Xavi Simons. There is no referee, whatever. Forget all that. Whether it's a red card or not, whatever. That tackle was not so. There was no reason for this guy was facing. You know, they already pressured this guy. So why slide? If you slide and get the ball, what are you gonna do? If there was nobody, there was no reason. I can't explain why. And then you feel the seat. But then I could also say Tottenham on my donkey of the week because this team, this told us when Frank came. This was the revolution, the master tactician. This is the most negative team I've seen. This guy fired manager playing brilliant football because they would think that these managers are being negative, and then they revert to this. Frank, I don't know, but for now, I just give my donkey to Xavi Simons. Last comment, Ola says, Wissa went on strike to join Newcastle, spat in Brentford's face, but Raji is fine with that one, no hypocrite. Raji is not a Brentford fan. That is a big difference, Ola. Very big difference.
Thank you very much.
Gentlemen,
one last thing before.
Raji, Ola, Soji. Okay, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I always love when Ola chimes in with his comments, and I want to wish him and his family a wonderful weekend, a wonderful holiday, a wonderful New Year. And I want to say that one of the things my pastors talked about this morning was forgiveness. It's important to be able to forgive. Unfortunately, I didn't listen to this message. I listened to everything else except from that one. So you can point out the hypocrisy. I'm only human. Ola, thank you very much for pointing that out. I will continue my rant till the end of this season. I love you, and I love you and your family. Wish you the best.
One last thing, Raji, and you guys are playing next week. Who's going to win?
Newcastle now.
Manchester United.
Yes,
Newcastle will win. Look, at this stage, I don't have full confidence. So everybody that beats us has 50%, more than 50% chance that plays us. Even
if Bruno Fernandes,
the mighty Newcastle.
If Bruno Fernandes was playing, I would say we have a problem. But Bruno Fernandes is injured, and he's the lifeline of that team. That injury is a big blow to Manchester United. If you had asked me before we found out he was injured, I would have said I don't know. But Bruno Fernandes, you cannot. It's going to a week to change how the whole team plays. He's the central reason why the team plays the way he is. He's the main distributor. He scores goals. He's the reason, the lifeline of this team. This incompetent manager, how is he going to change everything in a week?
I mean, they're higher than they used to be, so you have to give them that.
If we beat them next week, won't we be higher than them?
Thank you, Asha. Thank you, Raji. Thank you, Dada. Thank you, Ola, for the comments. Thank you for the comment. Thank you, all the viewers. We'll see you guys next week, Sunday. Before we go, it's almost at the end of the year. I know someone will be here next Sunday and they will tell you Happy New Year and wish you the best. But before I go, because this is my last one, I want to thank all of you that have been with us throughout the year. Like this, like the second or third time we've been together this year. Asha, we've done a couple together this year. But not just the guys I've done with me, but everyone that has been constant, the commenters, the viewers, the guys that watch after the show and add extra comments elsewhere. I want to tell all of you, thank you for being with us here. I wish your families the best. Have a good, wonderful Christmas. And see you next year. Bye, guys.
Bye. Merry Christmas, all. Especially you, Ola.
Merry Christmas, Saji.
You're watching Footy Fantasy. It is your steady thing will meet your football needs. Banter from rivalries, he sure you go receive. From EPL to Champions League, your eyes go see. It's Footy Fantasy. You're watching Footy Fantasy. Footy Fantasy. It is your steady thing will meet your football need. Your football need. Banter from rivalries, he sure you go receive. Sure you go receive. From EPL to Champions League, your eyes go